Hi, and welcome to the next episode of the Songwriter's Journey. I gotta be careful I don't bump the table because this is unscripted and unedited. It's been a while since I posted, mostly because of the holidays, and I just haven't had a lot I've wanted to get into or talk to. Nothing that I felt like was significant enough, but today I wanted to talk about why I am mostly avoiding AI. I am probably in the minority on this one. Actually, I am in the minority on this one, as we'll see. But I really don't want to use AI. I don't really have much intention to do so, and I'm avoiding it as much as I can. And we'll get into that. And so this is probably the point where I normally ask you to subscribe, and I'm going to say don't. I'm not trying to game the algorithm. I'm not trying to build a huge following. My goal is just to share with you things I learned as I'm pursuing being a professional songwriter. So I don't really necessarily care about YouTube and all its stuff. I'm not trying to make money off it and all that. Maybe down the road I will, but don't really care right now. So if you want to, fine. If you don't, don't. But if you do, I have to make more videos, and that's just more work. So do whatever you want. Fine by me. So let's get into it. Why am I mostly avoiding AI? Well, let me talk a little bit about the background, the perception that I come to with this. I'm by career a professional software engineer, so I'm kind of in the space. I don't do AI specifically now, but I'm very familiar. I've been working with computers in that industry for like 30 years, so I come with a bit of a different perspective than perhaps your traditional musician or somebody who's only been in the music industry. So AI is still in its infancy. We've barely even touched it, and it's getting pushed really hard across all these different industries. And there's a couple reasons for that. The first one I think is so investors can recoup their startup costs. There's a lot of guys betting big on AI, and you see ads or you see various commercials or you see everybody pushing it like do AI. If you're not doing AI, you're going to miss out as an engineer. You're going to lose your job. Blah blah blah. All sorts of stuff up there. Um, I think largely the reason is so investors can get money back. They want people using platforms. They want people paying the subscription to work to do stuff with the platforms, whatever that platform is doing, whether it's Suno or some other AI thing, chatbot paid. Take your pick. The goal is to get income flow coming in to recoup the cost of having to do all the research and figure it all out because it's very expensive to do all that. Plus the cost of the servers and doing all the modeling and all that kind of stuff. So that's one reason. The other one, I think, and perhaps the bigger one, is they're trying to figure out where the oil is. Points for a landman reference. In tech, investors typically hit 1 on 10. And if you've been watching Landman or keeping up on it, you'll know that Cooper hit 6 on 6 on these wells that he's digging. And so they're trying to figure out where the biggest money stream is, aka the oil, in AI, and to figure out what works. Because I don't think anybody really knows what does. I mean, humans do unexpected stuff, and humans mixed with computers who can think for themselves will do even more unexpected things. So there's a big push to use it, largely because they're trying to figure out how it will be used and figure out what works, what doesn't, how to capitalize on the biggest income streams, and figure out where they don't want to waste their money. So there is that. So I think those are the two biggest reasons it's getting pushed, largely to figure out how to make money on it. Another important thing about AI is there's neither common law nor statutory law around it. And common law is basically when judges decide stuff and like a case goes a certain way or there's a court case about something that has happened and there's not really a statute about it, the judge has to decide who's going to win that one. So that ends up being common law. And then statutory law is basically when laws are made to protect, citizens and things like that. None of that exists for AI. And we're starting to see, the industry is starting to see some lawsuits come about because of this. And so you're going to start having common law formed, precedent in which future cases will be decided based on decisions that are happening now. And then at some point, regulators are going to get in and create laws to, protect people. To me, AI is the next industrialization age. And a really cool, if you want to get a feel for how I think this is going to go, a really cool series to watch is called The Men Who Built America. It was done in 2012, and I think it's streaming now on the History Channel. And I think history is going to repeat itself. because you have industrialization, or in this case AI and big tech and all that, trying to figure out how they make money and get as much money as they can. And, it's going to run up against the interest of people. And when those things clash, stuff happens. And happened in the industrialization era, it's going to happen again with AI. Just it'll look a bit different, but essentially, people's interest versus big tech's interest in making money and all that, and the regulations are going to have to step in. It's eventually going to happen. We just don't know how that's going to play out. We don't know what's going to happen. So basically, anybody who's lower on that food chain is, going to get eaten, and they'll just scrape by. So, this is one of those areas where the big boys are going to play. They've got money to burn, and they can afford to take the losses to figure out how they're going to recoup it in the future. And the little guys just kind of along for the ride. So, who is using it as far as the music industry goes? My understanding, based on people I've talked to, is that, and this is from the perspective of me wanting to be a songwriter, is that just about every songwriter is using Suno or, take your pick, probably Suno, to enable their workflow or to increase their workflow, mostly for demos. They'll write the lyrics and they'll write the melody, and they'll tell Suno to create a chord progression or something around it. Kind of, just to create a demo for a song, because we know it's the melody and the lyrics that are copyrightable. Chord progressions, I don't believe, are copyright. And A, I'm not a lawyer. B, I'm not giving you advice. And C, this is just me thinking out loud. So if you don't like something, I'm sorry. And if there are attorneys listening, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not giving anybody advice. I'm just sharing you what I've learned. So most songwriters are using it. So from the perspective of me as trying to become a songwriter, it would make sense that I'd want to use it to get that edge. But I don't, and I'll get more into that in a bit. So now why are they using it? Demos, as I said, speed the market. It's a lot cheaper probably to have the monthly subscription and to have Suno help you create a demo than to pay session musicians to do the demo for you for a song. Publishing houses probably see this too. They're the ones who, I think, typically cover the cost. So for them, it kind of makes sense. You just get a Suno subscription, your track guy kind of bangs it out, works through it, and, you're paying whatever dollars a month, and then you can, how many demos can you get for like $100 a month compared to, that same number of demos and what it would cost to use real musicians? I mean, the cost savings are considerable, so it makes sense from that perspective. I think it gives established songwriters and publishers that edge because of that, both in time and finance. A side note, session musicians are taking a hit because of it. They or don't have as much to do. I mean, of course they will, for recordings and, from record companies. When you actually go to create an album, you can't really do that with Suno. So they're going to use real musicians for that. But, their source of income is getting thinned out. It's unfortunate. And then, artists, when they hear a demo or a song and then they want to cut it, they're going to make it their own anyway. So Suno doesn't really matter anymore in that case. So from that perspective, it makes sense for a songwriter to be able to present it in as polished a form as they can for an artist to be able to cut it. All right, makes sense. Why not do it? Well, here's the three main reasons why I'm not using it. The first one, and perhaps the biggest, is licensing. So if you read any of these AI user agreements, you basically grant them, and I'm going to read a quote from one of the licenses. I'm not going to say who it's from, but I'm going to read a quote from it. An irrevocable, perpetual, transferable, sub-licensable, fully paid, royalty-free, and worldwide right and license to use, copy, store, modify, distribute, reproduce, publish, list information regarding, make derivative works of, and display your content and output, etc., blah, blah, blah. So basically, when you submit something to Suno or any of these AIs, you're basically giving the company that owns it an irrevocable and perpetual, meaning for all eternity, them and their assigns, who, as that company 100 years from now, they'll still have a right to it, unless some other copyright law kicks in or something. Permanently to the stuff that you did, that you've uploaded. Maybe there'll be some things that get hammered out, and you keep the rights to your lyrics. I mean, they're still yours, but you're basically granting a license for the AI company, whoever owns that service, to do whatever they want with it, even though it's yours. And who knows how that's going to play out? I mean, for me, that's really concerning. I mean, I'm not making any money right now, as a songwriter. Eventually I will. But for me, I don't know that I want to give away my stuff. If it's something that like an artist would want to cut, but then it's sitting here in this AI pool somewhere and turns up somewhere else, you know, that could be a problem. And my number two reason is why I think that could be a problem is because you basically sign a release the AI company of any type of wrongdoing if you should get sued or they should get sued for the music being used, or if it's discovered that the music has gotten used in something. So let's say, and I'm speculating here, but let's say you create a song and it's a great, really cool song. It's awesome. You upload your stuff, you get Suno or whatever to make the demo of it, and then some artist cuts it. And then down the road, a piece of that work, just enough of that work, ends up in some TV show or some other, commercial or something. Something where automated music is fine to use, more fine to use than, an artist would want to do. And that artist hears that and says, hey, that ain't cool. Or the record company, more likely, is going to go, hey, I'm going to sue whoever did that. Well, they're not going to sue Suno because you released them. They're going to sue you as the songwriter because you granted those rights. Presumably. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but to me that's a way that it could potentially play out. And it's one of the main reasons why I want to avoid uploading anything I have or anything I created to Suno. Again, all the songwriters that I'm aware of, the major ones, the professional ones who are actually doing this day in, day out, they're using Suno for demos. I don't really know how to resolve that. I just don't want to do it myself, and that's what this video is about. The third thing, and perhaps to a lesser extent, but one that's very personal to me, is I think I will be a better musician and songwriter without AI, without using it. Will it take me longer to do things? Absolutely, yes. Is it going to take me longer to do a demo? Yes. Is it going to potentially cost me more? Yes. All the above. Do I want to use AI because of that? No. And here's an example. Here's how I thought through it. Imagine there's two of me. There's an AI me, not like AI created me, but there's a me writing songs and using AI to do the demos. And then there's musician me. Like musician me is the one who creates the demos or works through them or works with a producer or somebody else to create the demos if I can afford to do that. A year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, which version of me is going to be the better songwriter and or musician? Personally, I think it's musician me, the one who had to bang through it, who had to learn music theory, figure it out. And I played an instrument for 25 years, so I'm not totally removed from that, and it's not like a new thing for me, but I am having to get back into it and relearn stuff and all that. So it's not, like, oh, let me just go and learn music for the first time. But I think I will become a better musician and a better songwriter because I had to work through those things. I had to grind through it. I had to figure it out. I just didn't lean on some service to do it, But if AI me was what did it, then a year from now, am I really any better of a musician or a songwriter? I might be a better lyricist, just because I learned how to do lyrics better. But the music side of it, I think I would be lacking in comparison to musician me. And so for me, that's the more personal reason for me. And I know there are mentors and there are songwriters, professional guys out there who will say, if you're a lyricist, focus on lyrics. Don't focus on music. Hire people. There does come a question of affordability. If you can afford to do that, I think yes, absolutely. If you can't afford to do it or are financially strapped, you got to figure out something else. And, it's either you're going to pay somebody or you're going to have to learn to do it yourself if it really makes sense. For me, the musicianship is as much a part of songwriting as the lyrics. So to me, it's a whole package that I want to get through or work on and grow in. And so that's my choice. I think if I had endless buckets of money or enough endless buckets of money to where I could write songs and then hire, musicians to do it, then I would. But I don't, so I got to figure something else out. And this is the direction I'm going. And I don't want to use Suno for the reasons stated. And I said at the beginning of this video, why am I mostly avoiding AI? I think it does have its place. One place in particular is for educational or consumption kind of things. So there's like I think for me, a great example is something called Chordify. Like, in one way that I'm using it, Chordify is basically an online service. It uses AI. You feed it a song or a video from YouTube, and it figures out the entire chord structure of the song. It's probably mostly correct. May not be entirely correct, but mostly. So how would I apply that? So let's say there's a song by, I'll just pick somebody, Jason Aldean, that I like. And I'm like, oh, I really like what he did there. Oh, that's really cool. But my brain's not fast enough, like a Nashville session musician, to hear it and go, oh, that's a 6 minor to a 4 to a 5 to a 1, right? I don't know that yet. Maybe in time I will. Musician me will, certainly. But I can plug that song into Chordify, and then I can go and look and see what those chord changes are. And so there's, for me, that helps me figure out, oh, I like that chord progression. I like what that does. I think I want to use that type of chord progression in a song. Maybe I tweak it, I change it, do something different with it, I play around with it. But it's a very fast way to figure out something I like and then how to put it into a songwriter perspective to where I can then sit down and play it on guitar or piano. I think that's really cool. I think that's an awesome use of AI. I don't like the idea of uploading my stuff to AI because of the licensing issues and potential legal issues down the road, which I don't think any of us really know yet. So, what are some alternatives to using something like Suno or, Producer AI, I think is another one. There's a couple things, let's just get Band in the Box out of the way. It's okay. Not a fan. Sounds, I don't want to, deride them, but to me it sounds a little cheesy. You really got to work at it, I think, but I'm not a huge Band in the Box fan. I use Apple Logic, so the Logic session musicians are pretty cool. Again, you got to play with it. You got to spend time with it like you would with an AI. But I think there are things you can do there, and it sounds pretty good. And I certainly think other things are going to pop up. Logic session musicians, by the way, are royalty-free. What they do in the music is, you have no issues or worries. You can publish that as yours, as far as I know. Again, not a lawyer, just talking about what I remember reading. So, but there's not an issue using them, right? There's no royalty charge, there's no licensing issue with that. You can totally put that out there as your music. So, and like I said, others will be popping up. I think there will be other things popping up, potentially that do use AI, but that are royalty-free within like DAWs and stuff. And I'm aware of one of them now. I'm starting to play with it. We'll probably do a video on it in the near future, near being a couple months potentially, once I've played with it and really figured some things out. But there are alternatives. AI is probably the quickest, simplest way to do a demo or to create a piece of music if you've got your melody and lyrics done already. But again, I am not a fan, as this video is obvious about. And where do I think we are headed? I wrote some notes. Normally I'm very unscripted, but there's a lot of details here. So I think essentially you got to follow the money. There's a lot of things happening in the industry right now. We saw with record companies, with things like Spotify and all that, Spotify and streaming was going to take revenue from record companies. Well, record companies made deals with those streaming groups to get a piece of the pie, and then musicians and songwriters end up getting less from streaming. I think similar things are going to happen with AI. You're going to see deals getting cut where AI services are going to get a way to use people's music, whether you realize they're doing it or not. Somehow you're going to end up giving them permission. And, the big players are going to try and absorb as much of the revenue stream as they can. And like I said earlier, the little guy is going to get cut. I don't want to be all doom and gloom. I mean, it's a bit of a challenge, but, the reality is, the big gorilla in the room is going to win. And you just got to figure out how to work and not get whacked by the gorilla, in this industry now. I think there's a really good YouTube channel I want to shout out. I just learned about it today, but I really like her. It's called Top Music Attorney. It's where I figured out some things from watching things she's talking about. She is an actual attorney, But go check out that channel. It talks about the court cases that are currently in progress and stuff like that. I think that's one I just subscribed to. I think there's going to be a lot of great info there. Um, and the last question in my head is, how do you stop this? I don't think you do. It's going to land where the momentum is. And unfortunately, musicians or songwriters or anybody who's just trying to, make it, they're going to use whatever tools are available, regardless of the licensing and the implications, and try and get that money as quick as possible now. Like, do the demo, get it done, move on to the next one, the churn and burn kind of thing, and whatever tool makes that easiest. But I think, you know, because of that, people are going to be using it, and the more people that use it, the more companies are going to pursue it, and that's just kind of how that cookie crumbles. And unless everybody kind of revolts or rebels and doesn't choose to use it, unfortunately, center mass is going to be where everything goes, and that's going to probably be the majority of people. So AI is definitely something to keep an eye on. I mean, use it if you want. I'm personally not, and I just wanted to put out, my thoughts on it and why I'm avoiding it. Could it cost me? Yeah, I think so. Early on, it's going to take me a little longer to get stuff done, but personally in the long term, I'll feel much better about my music. I feel like, I'm smarter. Um, and being a musician and whatnot, not that I'm smarter than anybody else, but the education I'm going to get through going through the difficulties and challenges of learning things and getting them done myself, and kind of producing my own stuff, which just for largely financial reasons what I have to do at the moment. Um, I think long term, at least I tell myself when I go to sleep, I'll be better off for it. But hopefully this has helped. I appreciate you listening, and as always, captain your ship, raise the tide, and enjoy the ride. Until next time.